So last night I visited the cinema to see a horror film called Malignant with my mate. And obviously I thought, well, it's James Wan, so the most famous director in the horror genre, returning to provide us with another classic. I was wrong, and the film was terrible. Towards the end, I couldn't really work out whether I was watching a horror film, which is what I wanted to see, or an action film. So I thought that on the back of watching that shit show, why not make a video for everyone, picking out 5 independent horror films that in my opinion are worth your time and worth the watch. Now obviously horror is subjective and many people find different things scary, so if you have seen any decent horror films that you think are worth watching, then please leave them in the comments below. And if you are new to this channel and haven't already done so, then please do subscribe for more weekly movie or independent content. Also, just before we start, I'd like to say that the following independent films aren't really in order, but the last 2 are definitely the most I would recommend, and the ones that I don't think that anybody would have expected to be independently funded, considering how well they did at the box office. Also, there are no spoilers in this video. So this one is for everyone that loves a good zombie film, Maggie, directed by Henry Hobson and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Abigail Breslin. Maggie is based on a post-apocalyptic world where the planet has essentially been ravaged and is only just surviving after a pandemic, or in the film it's what's referred to as necroambulism. It's kind of a state where you've been bitten, you're scratched, or you've been infected, and your days are numbered, and you are kind of just waiting around before you turn into a zombie. I never thought that Arnie would ever step away from the action genre, but in this horror drama, he really pulls the performance off. It's just your basic zombie apocalypse survival for a dad that is just trying to do the right thing for his daughter while suffering from his past traumas. The scare factor is low in this one, but spookiness is at times off the charts. I mean, particularly this one scene where Arnie chases his daughter into the woods after hearing screams. I mean, it's dank, depressing, and grey, and there's a lot of macabre and sort of strange gore as well. Lionsgate even noticed its potential and swooped in at the last minute to purchase distribution rights. I have much horror respect for Lionsgate. Frozen isn't that Disney film that everyone just loves to forget. This one's more of a thriller than a horror. Still, it's considered scary, it's independent, and features flesh-hungry wolves, so it's on my list. Directed by Adam Green, who happens to be a very underrated filmmaker in the horror space in my opinion. It's about a group of friends that go skiing for the weekend and unfortunately end up getting stuck on a chairlift by some very questionable circumstances. Throughout the film, they are faced with life or death choices that not only test their relationships, but also their will to survive at any cost. Now, usually an entire film about a group of college students stuck on a chairlift for the duration of the film sounds terrible, but this film and others have pulled it off before. I'm thinking of films like 127 Hours and The Devil, films that can just continuously make a dull plot become more of a horrific thrill ride throughout. Again, it's like what I said about horror being subjective. For some people, it's zombies. For others, it's more real-world situations that make you think and, in this case, squirm for an entire hour, even if it's just ice, ski rides, blizzards, and wolves. Again, turning into a completely different direction in terms of horror, we have It Follows, which is hands down one of the more original and unique horror films that I've seen in ages. I believe that's why it's worth a watch, though it is different from most horror films surrounding a plot that has never really been done before. It Follows is about it following people and viciously, mercilessly hunting them down. And what is it, you might ask? Well, it is essentially an entity that relentlessly kills from person to person. It poses as a complete stranger, and basically it is a sexually transmitted disease, passed on from person to person and doesn't stop until it's found you. I think it falls under the monster genre, but honestly, some of the scenes where it eventually catches up to people are quite terrifying. I mean, the only way to stop the entity from coming for you is to selfishly sleep with someone else and pass it on. It's like a really sick, slutty game of hot potato. And as a horror film, it just works so well in creeping me out, keeping me on my toes and wondering when it's gonna pop up next. I'm aware I've just said it a ridiculous amount of times, and I do apologise. The horror factor for this one is high, but it is an acquired taste, so I mean it could go either way with this one with a lot of people. The next one is a film that even non-horror enthusiasts have seen at least once. When Insidious was released in 2010 by Focus Features, it was a massive hit, managing to even spawn 4 other films from its popular success, with even a 5th one on the way as we speak. The film centres around the idea of another dimension or an astral plane field where the dead could be contacted and where people with sixth sense type psychic abilities can enter and ultimately physically contact spirits. I really enjoyed the first Insidious, about a family that is being haunted by a horrific insidious spirit, or should I say spirits, that manifest themselves into various creepy forms, like a small child, a grieving witch, and even a terrifying red Darth Maul looking demon. So in my opinion, the first film in the franchise was the best, and I was amazed when I found out that it was an indie film. It was a franchise born out of small beginnings, and a James Wan masterclass where, because of it, you would have thought that Malignant would have been good, but I was completely wrong. But the characters are likeable, the villains and scenes are memorable, and like it or hate it, Insidious is one of the modern day horror classics that tiptoes by your window. Full of jump scares, great special effects, and one disturbing ghost scene involving a very infamous soundtrack that makes it well worth the watch. Last but not least, it's Jordan Peele's legendary award-winning horror Get Out. Started it all for Peele's world of horror. I mean, in hindsight, my mate and I should have probably watched the latest sequel, The Candyman. It's Jordan Peele's recent sequel and it's in cinemas now, but nonetheless, he's a director you can't go wrong with, and Get Out is the cherry. This psychological horror is about a young man named Chris that reluctantly travels to meet his white girlfriend's family for the first time, and without giving too much away, he uncovers truths and secrets that are shocking and disturbing to say the least. In great horror fashion, the film is very awkward, uncomfortable, and creepy for the audience. The family and their friends make it unbelievably awkward for Chris. They often outline his race a lot, and they constantly bring it up around him and his girlfriend. It kind of induces this kind of invasive and racist atmosphere. They are also alienating to Chris and the housekeepers that work and live there. Jordan creates this uncomfortable and sympathetic world for Chris. He creates this unforgettable and psychologically mind-bending world where nothing as it seems and a dark, mysterious truth is at the centre of it all. It's perfectly written and perfectly placed in the annals of American horror films, and it's one of the greatest. It might not be the scariest, but in terms of discomfort and disturbing natures, mixed with fantastic casting, which is what a lot of horror films should do, Get Out is well worth the watch. So there you have it, 5 indie horror films that I would recommend you watch. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done already, and on that note, take care everybody.